system.
That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is. Looks like we're going live. I'm going to wait until I see it actually go live. Boom, there we go. It says, you're live. Spelled correctly. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to For the Means, the weekly show where we talk about Predecessor, Overprime, and Ethereal. And you know what? Any other third-person MOBAs that might crop up, we might even cover them too. You never know. You never know.
You never know.
But this week we're going to talk about Kira has been in Predecessor for about a week now. We're going to talk about how, is she strong? Like, did she affect the game? We're talking about Mako being added into Overprime, another original intellectual property hero. Going to add a new section to FTM. We're going to talk about the differences between Predecessor and Overprime.
I don't see your camera, the cameras at all.
Yeah, I just typed it in chat because I thought it was me.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Professional streamer, everybody.
I don't know. You guys take it away while I fix this shit.
Well, I mean, I am the Jelly Niece. I am his friend and co-host on FTM because I have to say it because Mangoose apparently isn't going to introduce me anymore. But with us again, we also have the Viking Jedi. Welcome back again, Viking Jedi.
I don't know why I'm waving, but chat, I am waving at you guys. Yes, thank you for having us. We are working on the camera issues. They might be fixed already. It just hasn't popped up to live yet. But yeah, no, I'm really excited. This week we've got some good stuff to talk about, especially when it comes to Predecessor. Now that we have their first hero and we've all gotten a chance to play around with her, get like a pretty good feel, I think, from the community as well as far as like how she's fitting in the meta, and I'm really excited to see how she develops further. And then of course Mako, we really got a cool insight on his, but we won't obviously get to talk about him until next week's FTM, but we can talk a little bit about him this week, which I'm excited about. So good stuff.
And as I was saying, as I'm trying to order things, I updated OBS. I should not have updated OBS. The new section that we're going to be adding in is going to be, we're going to talk about Predecessor and Overprime and some of the differences between the two games. And this week I want to talk about the differences between how they handle interrupts, because they are very different in how each game handles interrupts. And I don't know how to change my media source to something. It used to be I would just click properties.
Billy, I don't know if Mako is a him. I assumed a gender, and I apologize. Mako is Mako.
2023, bro.
I don't know. Whatever. It is. Mako's Mako.
Because how do I change my media source?
I don't know. Give us a sec, boys. We'll get the production parts sorted shortly. Yeah, Mako is a Pokemon.
I'm trying.
I don't know what you're.
Okay. All right. I'm good. Should be good. It, guys. Here just a second.
Old man in technology, right? Like it's just one of those things.
Issues. Let's move on into Predecessor then. Finally. Jeez Louise. So Predecessor for this week, Kira got added in.
Yay!
I think what we said last week about Kira has been pretty much spot on, in that in the hands of the right person, and if they get ahead, she's super strong. Otherwise, she's just another carry.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I do think that I was vindicated in her off lane experience. I think that she has opportunities, but in most matchups, she's going to struggle in off lane. I think her best lane is going to be in the carry role with a good support. I do think in a more aggressive support benefits her a lot. Being able to either get a hook in or a stun or something like that to really set up her passive and her damage. But she's sneaky strong. Like she can, all of a sudden she gets those passive stacks upon you and you're trying to disengage and run away, and all of a sudden she hits you with that Q and you're gone. You're just dead because it does a lot of damage sneakily. But I do think, yeah, exactly what you're describing, Mingus. I think she seems to be one of those champions that if she's focused and put behind, she's really going to struggle. She's not as useful later on. Her real strength is by getting ahead and progressing her hyper carry. Now, if the other team is, I think, slow and finishing out the game, she can come back online later on and still be really strong. So there is a moment where she is kind of a ticking time bomb, I feel like, because her ultimate late game, even if you are ready for her to come in there, it can still have chunk you before you're able to CC her to death, because it's so strong late game. But really fun, interesting champion. I think skill expressive is the best way to go about with it. But what about you, Jelly? You played her a lot this last week.
Let me answer Yusuke real quick, because I like to get this out whenever anybody asks it. I like to get it out of the way now. We don't have any new news on console. They are working on console release. They all are working on it, but we don't know how far along they are. So no new news this week. I'm sorry. Whenever I have new news, that'll come out as a completely separate video that will let everybody know. So Jelly, thoughts on Kira?
I think she's probably slightly undertuned. Like I go back and forth.
Yeah.
Right. Some games I'll play her and I'll be like, yeah, you know what? She's fine. Like, is she strong? Yes, but only in the right scenarios, as she should be. Similar to Revenant, though Revenant's probably a tad overtuned. That when Revenant gets to the place that he wants to be, super strong, super good, well utilized. Kira's very similar to that in that regard, and the hyper carry nature of her. But then other times, when she isn't right in that niche, because I feel like her niche is a little smaller than Revenant's, when she's not in that niche, then I'm like, she just needs a little bit more to help, right? Like I talked to them, been talking to you guys all week about it. Like, what if her dash got reset on a kill? What if her Q reset when it executed? I've had thoughts that what if her Q refunded the mana back when you used it if it killed the target that you queued? Right? Something to just keep her momentum going a little bit more forward, because she almost behaves like an assassin that once her cooldowns are down, she's kind of a sitting duck for a little while.
Yeah, very cooldown dependent.
That's a little weird, because it's, as a carry, you think about her being basic attack based, but her basic attacks are not really where she shines. It's more about her abilities. And when she's on cooldown, she's effed. So it's a very weird thing. I wondered why you didn't say Yusuke, Mangoose, but that's fine. Yeah, I don't know. She's in a weird spot. She definitely needs a higher priority support than so like Muriel, not the best for her, but Narbash, Richter, Decker are going to be a lot better, because if you're able to keep somebody locked down for a second so she can just quickly rotate her kit through, then you back up and retreat, wait for those cooldowns and do it, rinse and repeat, you'll do really, really well. But the other thing, like you guys were saying, is her 3 items spike. It doesn't matter if Kira's been behind the entire game. When she gets to that 3rd item, she will be a menace to anybody on the map. Yeah, she will walk up there, right click, dash, ultimate Q, and everyone's dead. It doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter anything. That 3rd item is where she's just gonna pop off. So you need to make sure that she doesn't get there, and that your team is so far ahead when she does that you're able to end the game anyway. Because if you don't, she'll just come back.
I think to that point too is, I mean, she's probably one of the strongest 1v1s in especially in the carry role. I think she can, with items, 1v1 almost anyone, especially if it's a skill v skill matchup. But the other thing is too, is I think what's interesting about her and what I really like is that your team also needs to understand what she does and what she doesn't do as a carry, and they need to play around her. There's every other carry, it feels like for the most part, they're self-sufficient in a sense, like. And maybe it's also just because everybody's so familiar with what they can and can't do that it's just second nature to understand how to play around the carry. But she does things so differently than any other carry. You have to, I think, game plan as a team, which is harder to do in a solo queue environment. But when we were trioed up, it was a lot easier, I think. Especially Jelly and I, when we were doing duo lane together, it was easier for us to kind of play around cooldowns and understand when you can go in and when you can't and all that fun stuff. I mean, we still fucked it up, sure, but I'm saying that like it does seem like she really, really needs her team to be on the same page as her. So I think in like, all comms, a 5v5 competitive mode, she probably will be a lot more have a lot more carry potential. But again, the enemy team also needs to be aware of what she can and can't do and be ready, because she's very susceptible to CC. You blow her up, there's not much she can do. She just dies. She's very, very squishy.
She uses her dash poorly, that's a dead Kira. Yeah. Like she, every time, if you see her dash at you and you know that she doesn't have the support to back it up, just tear her down, because she won't be able to do anything after that, especially if she gets through her cooldowns.
I usually measure the efficacy of heroes by how afraid I am to encounter them in the jungle.
It's a very perfect metric.
Yeah. So if I see a Kira in the jungle and I'm on like a main girl Bellica, I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, free kill. It doesn't matter how far ahead she is or what she's been doing. I'm going to get that stun. If I get the stun off, if I do hit the stun, she's dead. She's done for.
Yeah.
Whereas if I encounter a Revenant in the jungle, I'm scared. I kind of I'm like, I don't know how this is going to go, because if he ults me, I'm rooted, and then he's going to fucking 2-tap me and I'm dead.
Yeah.
Whereas Kira, I'm not afraid of that.
I think that's exactly where why I settle on the Kira's probably slightly undertuned side of things, because I said before that she's almost like an assassin in the carry role, and that she blows all of her cooldowns, and then after she does that, she's really not that scary.
Yeah.
Yes, she's got strong basic attacks like any carry late game that'll hurt, but realistically, her cooldowns are the things you want to fear. If you know that she blew through all of her cooldowns, whatever, right? And her cooldowns aren't strong enough to warrant that kind of play. Right? Where when I think of a Revenant, yeah, he's similarly very cooldown dependent, and with his 4-shot basics, depending on which basic he's on. Right? But like you said, he can come up to you, ult you, Q you, left click, and you're dead. Instantaneously, doesn't matter. Right? And that's just at late game. He doesn't have to be super fed, right? That he can just do that. Kira can't do that. But she's just as cooldown reliant, if not more so, than Revenant is. Right? And so it's this weird ground that she kind of is trying to fill two roles but doesn't do either well. I think honestly the best in Predecessor comparison is Feng Mao, right? Where it there's a lot of similarities of like straddling this line between being one character and being another, and then the itemization's not quite there to support that either, and so you just kind of end up in this weird spot where they're good sometimes. I've seen good Feng Maos, but I've also seen a lot of bad Feng Maos, and so it's meh.
Somebody in chat pointed it out, and I think it was Jamin. Yeah, Jamin said she's a Countess carry, and I think Countess to me felt more real, because like same thing. Like you can go up against the Countess and you're like, fuck, how do I even fight this chick? Like she's so freaking good, and like and then other times you're like, okay, we have I guess just a freaking melee minion Countess walking around, and like she's useless. I don't think she's undertuned. I think that's the wrong word. I feel like she needs some kind of shakeup to keep her in line for early game. I think it's her early game is probably her worst. And I understand that she's maybe designed to be a bit more of a hyper carry, but with time to kill and snowballing in this game so high for other champions, it just feels like, okay, well, if she's your only threat late game, we can blow her up so fast because we've won early game. And then all the rest of your team just sucks, and we can just win. I just don't know. But I also think that Predecessor struggles with the bigger macro, and I think she suffers with the macro being the way it is currently. She just doesn't offer the same amount of utility or kill threat unless she's able to get her full rotation off. If you let her get her full ultimate off and all of that other stuff, sure, she's gonna destroy people. But anybody who like looks at her and goes, oh, I just have to hit her with any of my CC and she's basically done for. It's yeah. So that's where I feel like they just need to change where her power is placed. I don't have an exact solution for that, but I feel like that's the only thing I can think of that would tune her correctly, because I don't think she's undertuned. She's just really skill reliant, and I mean that in her skills and you as the player's skills. Like, and that's really difficult to navigate, especially in a solo queue environment.
Yeah, Jalay, I agree. Like I said, the itemization isn't there to benefit her kit style.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
And similar to Feng Mao. Feng Mao, they nerfed bruiser items because Feng Mao was utilizing them too well, and they nerfed Feng Mao accordingly as well. Right?
Countess too.
And then
they nerfed her for
you want him to be an assassin, but assassin items don't really fit his kit, and so it's this weird middle ground that he has to be in. And I feel like Kira is almost identical to that, just in the carry side of the items.
Yeah, I think she's good. She's not undertuned. She's not overtuned. She's just good. She's just a good addition to the game. She's just a good carry. I think we expected a little more from an original IP hero. We expected her to kind of burst on the scene and shake everything up, but no. I think it's also fine that they just introduced a just good, well-balanced hero into the game. Like I think she's just fine. I don't think she's the best carry out there right now. She's not the worst, and I think this is just a week. I think after a month, people will have nailed down builds for her and have adjusted to how she plays a little better. You'll have people that main her that will be just absolutely ferocious with her, so maybe I will be scared after a month. But right now, and then we have to take that in consideration too. There's a lot of people that don't normally play carry are playing Kira right now.
Sure.
And they're playing her wherever the fuck they want to, just so that they can play her. So you got to take that into account too. That's one reason that she's probably not as scary as she might be here in about a month, when the hardcore ADCs are the only ones that are really playing her again.
Yeah, I agree. I do think itemization is a big part of it. And Jalea, I don't think any of the AD carries in Pred are bad into themselves. What's kind of interesting to me about Pred AD carries is they're all situationally strong and situationally weak. And that's it is there's like, other than Revenant, I feel like, who has the ability to kind of solo carry games on his own, I think all the other carries require still the team to play around them. Not that I think that Revenant doesn't, but just to answer your question, I don't think any of them are weak. They all just require different things from their team. And also, I think all the carries are support heavy. They really need their support to facilitate them a lot, which is exciting, but also maybe not great if you're a carry where you want to feel like you can just do whatever you want every game. But no, you really do need your support to help you. Murdoch is good. I think all of them are good, honestly. They're all. I think they're all good.
Even Sparrow.
Drongo's so annoyingly good in certain situations.
I think a lot of people
silence than it is anything else.
Yeah,
but a bad Drongo will use his silence incorrectly, and a really good Drongo will make you want to freaking throw your keyboard out the window.
Well, let's move on from Kira. Let's talk about this event that they did. They've got this event going on, which I don't really know too many details about because I didn't give a shit. It's for Countess and Kira, two heroes that I don't play. But it's like Countess versus Kira. You sign up for one team or the other, and then whoever has the most kills at the end gets a new border or some shit.
I don't think you need to sign up. I think it's
just
native to the game.
Native to the game, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I was paying attention to when this was announced, and I still don't understand what's going on. Right? Like, and I think that right out of the gate, I think that shows the problem with this event is it almost felt random that they were just like, oh, you know what? It's Thursday after our original character came out. Let's do an event, right? Like it was just weirdly broadcast. It was not talked about really prior to that. It wasn't put out well. Like it, it just. And even I saw this on the subreddit. I told you guys yesterday when we were playing Pred, I was like, it's very rare that I go on the Predecessor subreddit and see a universal post with everybody being like, yeah, this was bad. And that was one of the posts that I saw yesterday was about this event.
Yeah.
Was everyone kind of going like, yeah, this is a terrible event, or I don't understand what's going on, or yeah, like the brand new character versus the one that you released 3 months ago. Who's gonna win? Right? Like a lot of people were surprisingly upset about this event, and probably a bit too much, but it still showed that like clearly this missed the mark from what everyone was trying to do.
Fox felt like a false announcement.
Oh.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I mean, it's a cool idea. I like that they're doing events. I just did not particularly care about this one at all. So
yeah, I like I agree. I like the idea of an event. This event just didn't really hit the mark, and this is the thing. And I will say about at least they did something, I guess. I don't know why so many people would be so upset about it. Like they have some kind of like money on the line. Like that's the part that really gets me. It's so weird to hear what people will bitch and moan about and get like all up in arms about and put together Reddit posts and Twitter threads and start fights basically with the devs over something. It's like, dude, it's a for fun event that you do or do not have to participate in. Like there's literally no harm one way or the other. Like I mean,
if Countess doesn't win, you don't get the Countess rewards.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's where it mainly comes from. One,
a border.
The event doesn't make a ton of sense in just conceptually. We've got Kira who's an ADC and Countess who's not. Yeah. Right. And you're saying it's like Countess v Kira and they're not even in the same lane. So it's not a versus thing. How does this make any sense?
More of a lore wise thing, I guess.
But they didn't give us lore. That's a whole other thing.
That was gonna be my point. They didn't even give it like a cinematic, really playing up the lore between the two. To me, if I were the guys doing this, I probably would have made a for fun event of where you can only like pick those two champions in like an Aram style map or something like that, and you just have people duke it out for fun and whatever. Like to me, it seems silly that it's like just play games like normal, but pick these two champions every game so that way we can rack up kills, because it just, I don't know, it just felt weird.
I guess I would be pissed if they introduced a brand new IP mage and then pitted that mage against Bellica. I would want the Bellica border, and I would be kind of pissed off that they pitted Bellica against this brand new IP mage, you know what I mean? But
yeah, and I think that's
so I can see that. I can see why people are a little bit angry, I guess.
I think that's partly where it falls apart, though. Is just like there's no cohesiveness between the two things, right? The only real reason we have even like Kira v Countess is because in the original teaser for Huntress, they talked about how she's hunting Countess. Past that, we haven't heard anything about this lore otherwise. Like, and so it just feels disconnected from what they've been releasing and what they did with the release in general.
I would like to see them do more with lore.
This comment is perfect. Decker versus Muriel, Gideon, Gadget versus Gideon, right? Like people in the same lane where it makes sense that you're going to have an actual duel against each other, right? It's Kira versus Countess are never going to see each other outside of team fights, right? Yeah. Or unless you're playing Kira Countess off lane, maybe. And even then, not really.
Or Countess is in mid and just keeps ganking off or ganking duo lane or something like that over and over again.
Yeah.
And two cookies point too, like you read part of it. It's like it's 4 different things. Like so, Decker and Muriel for penta kills or something like that. Like okay, or for Gadget versus Gideon for the river buff. Like putting the emphasis on who gets the most kills. Like I don't know. It just again, it seems like it's supposed to be a for fun event, and then they didn't have the fun part. But again, I'm also not that pissed about it. Like I
don't care.
I saw the event and I was like, okay, I don't really give a shit about this, so I'm not worried about it.
Point as well.
It's a bit of a problem.
They didn't do anything to get you excited about it.
Well, no.
Right? They just randomly were like, "Here's an event."
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Like, wow.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fun. It's cool that they're doing events. That's the upside.
In League of Legends, they did an event like Dreamwalker versus Endbringer, which was Riven and Yasuo. They've done it a couple times, but they did Darius and Garen, then Riven and Yasuo, right? And these are characters that are in the same lane that they built up an event around. They had themed skins around the event. They had all of these things that get everybody in the community, or a vast majority of the community, excited about the event, right? And this isn't that. Like, it's just not meh.
Okay.
You hit. Oh, go ahead.
Just had a disgusting image pop into my head.
Oh,
I was thinking you were saying skins designed around it. The Grux pelt skin that Chimera is pretty much wearing Grux's head and pelt. Could you imagine Kira wearing Countess's head and skin?
Oh. More interesting than a fucking border. Okay, so that's I'm gonna transition us using this as a transition. The fact that we got an IP champion and they didn't have a cool, badass IP skin. We've been getting fucking recolor after recolor after recolor. And now they bring us a brand new champion of their own design, have an opportunity to make a sick, really interesting, maybe lore heavy, some kind of cool thing. And it's a slightly, and I mean the slightest amount over a recolor. It's slight paint difference on her face. They didn't even change the color of the crossbow bolt. And like, I don't care that the animations or the spells themselves don't change color or anything like that. That's okay. I don't mind that for fidelity. But like, nothing about that skin is all that much more interesting than just the base skin. And it's like, I was really excited to see something like new and fun from them. And I'm sorry to say this to the Pred boys, but like, I'm just constantly disappointed by their art direction and the way that they are making the aesthetics of the game feel interesting and intriguing and want me to showcase it in game. Like, I don't care about literally any of the skins in the game. I have zero desire to buy any skin that Predecessor has put out at all. Like, if it was like my money going into it, I just wouldn't do it.
I think it's been pointed out in chat though that Kira does fit in with the Paragon aesthetic overall. Like, yeah, we know their skin game is not up to par. We know this. We've discussed this a million times. We know that they need to do better skins. But I think Kira does fit into the aesthetic with the other heroes.
Yes.
Nicely.
I would agree there that I think Kira's design in terms of what the Paragon heroes looked like is pretty close, right? Like, I wouldn't say it's 100% there, but it's much closer than I would have expected for a first time out the gate. For her release skin, yeah, it's underwhelming. Tier 1s or whatever the commons, I guess, are going to be what the release skins are, it seems like. And theoretically, they're holding off all the cool whiz-bang stuff for her level 40, if you reach level 40 skin. So I'm very curious to see what that's going to be. If that's also just a basic recolor material change, I'll be kind of peeved. But So yeah, I mean, but great. This is a fantastic transition as well. So they announced what their tiers are for their skins, and that's just terrible too.
I didn't see that.
Like in the patch notes, it's in the patch notes for the Kira release patch that they have common and rare, and the price for those inside of those tiers, the price will change between 600 and 800 for commons, and I think it's 13 and 1600 for rares, because of it depending on which of the things in that tier they actually have. I think that's ridiculously stupid. It's a way to justify their behavior. It's not an actual way that makes any sense or that has been done in the industry elsewhere. And that pisses me off by itself, because we're so great. Recolors are $6, and then recolors with a material change are $8. Like, so the Countess skin has a material change. That's an $8 skin now, even though it's just a recolor of her base model with, just like I said, just the materials change. And it's just lazy, and it pisses me off that we're going to say that tiered skins have different prices. You're all in the common tier, but you can have a $2 swing in either direction. You're all in the rare tier, but you can have a $3 swing in any direction. Like, why? It's just ridiculous.
It is a little weird. We did ask for it, though. We specifically asked them to justify why there's different prices for these skins. So I guess we got our answer.
I don't know. To keep in theme of me saying this every time about the time from now to when Epic made these skins gets longer and longer every time I talk about it. So like a lot of these skins look 10 years old, you know, and now they come out with a new champion and a new skin, and it's also 10 years old. Like, how does that make sense? I don't care about the fidelity and aesthetic from when this game was brand new and everybody was playing it on their PlayStation 3 or 4 or whatever. Like, I want today game. I want a today skins. And I know like there's a lot of OG Paragon guys who are just, I just want Paragon back. Like, I'm not you. This is 2023, dude. I want shit to be cool, and I want to be exciting. I want to feel seen on the Rift when I buy one of your fucking skins, and the pricing and all that stuff for Epic assets. It pisses me off. I'm not going to go down all of that. I'm just not impressed. You know what I mean? And like, it surprises me that the rest of the community is also not more on that. Like, how are you not doing things to be more impressive? Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm being ridiculous. That's just me.
Earlier, Mangus, you kind of talked about part of it, of the fitting aesthetic of Predecessor, right? And the rest of that comment was talking about the aesthetics of Overprime not matching Paragon as much as Predecessors match Paragon, right? And I don't think they should.
No, they shouldn't.
I think Paragon the Overprime is doing more of that 2023 design implementation than Predecessor is currently. And yes, does that mean the aesthetic is different from Paragon? Absolutely. But I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think that them forging their own aesthetic is also a good thing, right? Yes, people are upset that they changed Shinbi's face, Twin Blast's face, and I'm blanking. I'm sure there's
a whole bunch of people. Faye's hair is different. Like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
Right?
They loaded a bunch of junk in Countess's trunk. I don't think anybody's bitching about that one though.
But like
somebody is.
Saying that Mako doesn't fit the Paragon aesthetic, I agree with you. I don't think Mako fits the Paragon aesthetic, but I think Mako fits the Overprime aesthetic perfectly.
I think Overprime too needs to get away from listening to Paragon fans, because the obvious better Paragon remake is Predecessor. That one's just obviously the better Paragon remake.
Yes.
Overprime is its own game though. They could make a different new experience for the people that want a different and new experience. And I think that they should stick to doing that instead of kowtowing to a lot of the Paragon fans and trying to make their game more like Paragon. It doesn't need to be like Paragon. It can be Overprime, even though they named it Paragon.
Yeah, they're creating a new MOBA with Paragon assets more than they're creating Paragon again. And I think that is okay. Like, I think we need to be more okay with
I'm very much okay with it.
More okay with that, and allow them to be able to do the things they wanted. Because, and we've heard Bearded Wolverine talk about it several times on the, I can't remember what they called their Primecast, on the Primecast, and then on FTM the couple times he's been here, about how CBT2 he didn't like at all, and then the final beta test he actually enjoyed playing the game again, which is great that they appealed to a new player, that the new player came in. Mm-hmm. But the game was fundamentally changed between the two places.
Mm-hmm.
right? And that, I think, is also a potential detriment. We've said it many, many times as they've announced those changes. That's a potential detriment to the game. And that we're getting to the point where, yeah, exactly, Mangoose. Predecessor's the better Paragon remake, so stop trying to be a Paragon remake.
Yeah.
Do your thing. Do it well. Go back to the 3 abilities. Make the 2 towers work. Do the things that you want to do more extremely, that you can bring players in that like that aesthetic better, rather than trying to find, I said it about Feng Mao and Kira, trying to find this middle ground that doesn't work for either side.
Yeah.
I think Bearded Wolverine is a perfect example, because Bearded is going to prefer Predecessor no matter what. Well, I wouldn't say no matter what Overprime does, but Bearded prefers Predecessor. So Overprime isn't going to suck Bearded in by making the game more Predecessor-like, because Predecessor is already more Predecessor-like, you know? Yeah. He's already got a game that he can play like that. But then folks like us that kind of want something new and fun and different are going to gravitate towards Overprime. So that there are 2 different fan bases there. And Overprime needs to stop trying to dip into the Paragon fan base, because that's not where their success lies. Whereas Predecessor, I think they also need to be doing, you know, some new and different things, and they have been. They've been constantly iterating and improving Predecessor, and it's become a better and better game. But they already have that. The old Paragon fans, they lean to Predecessor. People that just like I said, I don't necessarily think one game is better than the other, but like I said, Predecessor is the better Paragon remake, but Overprime is still a great, fun fucking game that I love to play.
It's a good MOBA. We give it a lot of critique, and I know we will probably do some of that today again, depending on how things go. But I agree. I continue to give Predecessor a lot of kudos that they have lived up to what they said. They're starting slow and iterating each patch and getting better from patch to patch. And I think for the most part, they have done that. I think Kira coming in, you know, a lot of times, you know, League of Legends is probably the biggest example. Whenever a new champion is released, you know, it's overpowered, it's impossible to balance. It takes, you know, 15 patches for them to get it to somewhere, and then it's either, you know, still overpowered or it's dead, and then just move on to the next cool champion. I think Kira comes in kind of almost similar to how when Xena came in. It's like, she's viable. Not overpowered, not underpowered. I think she's okay. Obviously, she's getting a lot of play right now because she's the new hotness. But I think as the game goes along, and I already saw it in some of my games, she wasn't even being picked sometimes. Because people were just like, okay, I got my fun from her. I'm going to go back to what I think is the best pick currently. And I think that's good. I think that'll be fine. So Predecessor overall, and this will be my final point, and we can move on. But I think Predecessor has made a good new champion into their game. I think she'll be exciting to see how it, you know, grow with the game, and I'm excited to see more. I still will challenge the team to do more innovation to make the game more exciting. I still think time to kill and team fights are wackadoodle. You know, we were talking a little bit about macro, especially with you being in the tournament, and how solo lanes probably better off never grouping with their team and just constantly pushing towers. That doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me, and I play mostly solo lane. I want to get into fights. I want to use my team fighting ultimate to do something cool in a team. But I'm sacking pressure to do that, right? And we tried that sometimes this week, where I was like, all right, I'm going to come and try and help with the, you know, with the neutrals takes, and then I just ended up losing 2 towers for it.
Yeah,
I don't know. So they still have some innovation to do, and I'm looking forward to what that looks like.
Let's transition over to the other Predecessor news for this week, which was the Hunt of Heroes tournament, which is actually going on right now. I think grand finals will be tonight. This has been the least dramatic tournament in a good way. Like, there's been drama in every fucking tournament for Predecessor and Overprime. Not good drama. Like, you want dramatic gameplay. There's been plenty of dramatic gameplay in this tournament, but the outside drama has been very minimal. It's been just a good, fun tournament. People signed up for it. They randomized the teams pretty much. Some of them are a little stacked, but you know what? You can't help that. Some team, if you do a randomizing like that, some teams are just going to be stacked. You don't know everybody's skill level. I participated in the tournament, so that gives you an idea of how low skilled you needed to be to get into this.
Dude, you're always talking shit, dude. You know what, guys? I don't know if any of you have gotten a chance to play against Mangoose, but he's way better at these games. I mean, I'm not saying he's like, you know, Soul Reaper good, but he's definitely better than average.
Oh, I'm better than Soul Reaper.
And he beat Soul Reaper the other day, so yeah. I mean, that automatically
by the rules of bronze. whoever takes their tower first wins that lane, and the rest of the outcome of the game, that's on your team. As long as you take your tower first, you won.
I just think in Rules of Chronicles of Riddick, you keep what you kill. You killed Soul Reaper automatically better than Soul Reaper.
This is true. Oh, what a good movie, by the way.
I love that movie so much.
It's so good.
So I want to pull this up too. So the little bit of drama that was in the tournament was actually centered around my team. It was Overdrive versus Black Tims, or just Tims was the name of the team. Black Tims is on the team. That's a bit of a narcissistic name now that I think of it. But anyway, their jungler lost power, disconnected mid game, and so we just kind of rolled over him after that, and that would have been super embarrassing if we would have lost the 4v5. But they were obviously winning before that. So, after the match, they asked if we wanted to rematch. I, of course, said, fuck no rematch. We play it as it lies. I spent a lot of good money having Bear's power cut off so that we could win that game. But no, we all unanimously agreed, and then we got beat. And I'll tell you right now that losing a fair fight felt a hell of a lot better than winning an unfair fight. But they gave me a little let me
a little attaboy.
Yeah, they gave me a little certificate. They gave all the entire team Overdrive a little certificate, thanking us for being for good sportsmanship, which I thought was really cool of them. Just a really fun, good tournament overall, and just really, really happy with it. This has, I think, been the best tournament overall. The GTG tournament I thought was really good for Overprime a long time ago, back in the final beta test. But this one was really good. It's really good as well.
Yeah,
but,
100%.
So check that out. And then let's move on now though to Overprime. Up here. Actually, let me pull up the Mako. There we go. So Overprime has announced that they are introducing Mako into the game. This is an original IP support, and along with him, as we've learned a little bit more about his kit. I didn't know much about his kit, but they did a dev stream, and SoulXCloud, who really great dude, he did a sort of a breakdown, like where he went through and tried to find out what Mako's kit actually does. I have that link down in the video description if you want to check that out from SoulXCloud, and drop him a sub while you're there. And he brings a mechanic to the game that we haven't seen in a Paragon or Paragon-like game ever, which I think is great because it's actually going to shake things up, which Overprime really needs. And that is, traditionally, we've always had heal overtime heroes. Jelly corrected me earlier. I said in Paragon it was always health regen, increased health regen, from the phase link and Narbash and everything. But it's always been heal over time. Mako just has a straight up heal, like a straight line. If he hits an enemy, it deals damage. If it hits a hero, it heals them for a burst of healing. We have not seen just straight up healing in a Paragon game unless it was on an item. And I think this is going to be a little nutty.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Also, chat is not scrolling live, so if you want to hit refresh on it or something like that.
I just saw that skin for the first time. I somehow missed that when I watched the video. Holy shit, that skin!
It looks so cool. Yeah,
I'm so in.
Cool. But
give
even
me a
his base looks great.
Skin all day long.
Yeah, I think he looks cool. I mean, just the long range that he has is also kind of nutty to me. It kind
of seems like he does a little bit of everything. Honestly,
yeah.
Like I'm almost concerned that this is power creep and there's only like 25 heroes in the game.
Well, I mean, his abilities don't seem to do a whole hell of a lot of damage, which is nice. I haven't seen anybody do like a damage build with him or anything. But as far as the skin goes with the tire, immediately my first thought was that he is Axel from Twisted Metal's pet.
Yes, perfect.
But yeah, as far as his kit goes, he has the straight heal. He has like a long range bouncing ability that knocks enemies back, so that will serve also as an interrupt. Which we'll be talking about tonight as well. His ultimate is really cool. It's a lot like May from Here's the Storm. You see him throw that ball out. What you don't see is it wraps everybody up that's in the line of that ball, and then they impact on what at the end they get stunned in a big impact, and they're all grouped together. Or once it hits a wall, it explodes. So that's going to be really fun. Like I can imagine a fight in the Prime Pit. Mako just rolls everybody, blasts them up against the wall, and then that's a perfect setup for like a howitzer ultimate or just a Gideon rock. Not even a Gideon combo, just a Gideon rock on everybody on the enemy team that got rolled up into that ultimate. That's going to be insane.
Yeah. I mean, I just think his whole kit looks like it's going to shake things up quite a bit. I was laughing, by the way, at JVN's mention. I can throw balls at people. Sign me up. The range at which he's able to do stuff, or it's able to do, I don't know, is going to be nuts. I'm excited to see what that looks like in team fights, especially because my thing is that I think Overprime's biggest strength is in their team fighting, and the way that there's opportunity for all kinds of fun stuff to happen in a team fight. I don't think any team fight is ever the same. It never feels like it's going to be the same kind of team fight back and forth. It's always kind of rambunctious and a little bit chaotic, and it's a lot of times the team that manages to navigate through all that chaos. And I have a feeling Mako is going to be helping to create more of that kind of crazy chaos. He looks fun. That's all I can say, and I can't wait for us to be able to play him in just a few days, because he's going to be, he's going to be hotly contested.
Also, part of his kit, he has a jump in where he lands and it slows enemies. I think if you in Predecessor, if you were to jump in like that with a hero with a support, you would just die.
Yeah.
Mako, I think, will actually have enough time to jump in behind the enemy team, roll them up in a ball, and throw them into his own team. If that's a good idea, maybe. You never know. You maybe don't want to roll that Sevarog and Chimera up and then throw them into your ADC, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for some great plays with Mako. And then with fights lasting long, that burst heal, I think it's going to be so much fun. I'm thinking of other healers I've played in other MOBAs, and timing that burst heal, knowing who to heal and when to heal is a lot of fun whenever you're supporting. And I think that's going to bring a lot of fun back and freshen up Overprime a little bit. Yep. It needs it. Overprime's stale as fuck right now.
The biggest thing, honestly, I want bigger just overall changes from them in this Mako patch.
Oh gosh.
I don't want Mako to come in and then have it be Mako and stale game. Like, I'd rather it be, honestly, flip the game on its head at this point, because it's kind of sad.
I agree.
They are resetting ranked mode, but we don't know anything as of now. As of us talking about this right now, we haven't seen patch notes, so
no, we don't know anything.
We're sort of guessing it. Yeah,
tonight they'll probably come
I would imagine so.
You know what's funny?
That's the way they do it.
Switch to Sundays, right, to do the live streams and all of that kind of stuff, so we could have the information before we talk about it, and then everybody switch their information so we don't have the information to talk about it anymore. It's perfect.
They have hinted at, with some of the live streams, that there's a lot of changes coming. This is what Overprime needs. Like I said, it's gotten really stale. The ADC Decker beta is just oppressive as fuck. They need to make a lot of changes, and hopefully those changes are coming. And there's gonna be a lot of people playing Mako. I usually don't get I wasn't too excited to play Kira because I'm not a carry kind of guy. I am very excited to play Mako, whatever. It's okay, Soul Reaper. You were playing in your little tournament.
I do. I mean, the thing that's annoying, I think, with Overprime is like all the potential is there. And it's just like, it's like that kid, you have them like, you got all the potential, but why can't you just come together and execute it right? Like, there's like hints at just one of the most amazing games, I feel like, with all the visuals and the nuance and kits and the team fights. Like, all of that part is great. They just need the core gameplay to feel good, and that's where it's the biggest lack. And I know we talked about it every week, but like, minions not mattering as much, towers feeling like there's no real split pushing, there's no real big macro. It's like after 15-20 minutes, it's like who meatballs better and manages to win the game that way. And that sucks. Like, even though you're getting really cool and fun team fights, it just turns into a meatball fest. And I don't know. I don't have fun with it long term. I usually enjoy the games that I get into in spurts. I can play like 3 or 4 games and then I'm like, okay, I'm good now. Because you start to miss that other part of what makes, you know, your traditional MOBA exciting. And I don't think it's drastic fixes that they need. Honestly, I think they just need to really sit down and figure out how to make minions and towers and lanes matter more than they currently do. And once that's fixed, and I would, like we've talked about it before, I would almost say go overboard. Like, make minions stupid valuable, like make them almost too valuable so people are hardly leaving lane at first. Like, if I leave lane, I'm fucking trolling you. Like, but I don't know. I don't know what else to do, and obviously I don't have their ear to be able to get them to listen to me. But I do think that the game needs something, because all the rest of it is there. It's just the macro aspects of the game feel very stale and they feel repetitive. The games always feel the same. We're going to group as 5 in mid lane, or group as 5 around one of the neutral pits. We're going to try and fight it out. Whoever wins, and that's usually again, we're going to do it again. Rinse, repeat at the next objective. Rinse, repeat at the next objective. It's just never. I don't know. It just seems weird, and so they need to do something. You feel like a MOBA? Yes, it still feels like a MOBA. It's just not. It's not as aggressive as a traditional MOBA is.
My biggest thing is like we said earlier. Even though they picked up the Paragon name, even though they picked up the Paragon logo, they need to stop trying to be Paragon and be Overprime.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because Overprime is fun.
Overprime is great. I mean, I'm of course in the camp that I don't want another Paragon. And again, I think Mango's hit the head. Predecessor is a better Paragon remake, whether you want to call it Paragon 2 or maybe even, I would say maybe it's like Paragon 1.5. It's like slight iterations, you know, like,
well, it's Predecessor, so it's Paragon 0.5.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, it's not. It's good enough to call itself new, but it's not like it's not changing anything dramatically enough to be so different. It still feels very Paragon to me. And I know there's a whole slew of people that's exactly the game they want. And I'm also enjoying Predecessor. It's not like my games on Predecessor. I mean, sometimes I'm tilted out of my mind, but I loved Overprime because to me it felt like all of my favorite characters from Paragon got a facelift and thrown into the future, and like they got all these new exciting kits, and some of them stayed the same because they fit well, but they got new aesthetics, and you know, I don't know, it just felt like a more exciting, like, you know, like, and then it just like over time it's gotten worse and worse and worse as far as the overall macro. Everything else is still there. Like I said, it's just the macro feels blech.
There's an amount that like the nostalgia glasses are involved in this, but maybe. I sometimes think that I had more fun in CBT2 than I'm having today in Overprime. That's not to say I'm not having fun, but that CBT2 was just more fun overall because the game felt new and different rather than it does now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you had all your abilities unlocked from level 1. You had the Prime Dunk mechanic in there. You had a lot of cool shit.
Fucking Prime
Dunk has gone away.
Well, there was parts of Prime Dunk that obviously they would have needed to fix, right? But the fact that we could end games at 8 minutes, that's not good gameplay. We don't want that over Prime. I think that was over Prime.
Yeah.
But the idea behind a lot of the stuff was there.
I will die on this hill that Prime Dunk is a balanced mechanic. And anyone who says otherwise, fight me. I swear to God, I will fight you all because it's ridiculous that it got taken out, and I hate it every single day.
I wish they didn't take it out.
Well, they didn't need to make it the Prime or marching down the lane, pushing mid lane. Like, you know, it could just give you the Prime buff. Yeah.
The dunking mechanic by itself, Prime Dunk is a balanced mechanic.
Yes.
I will fight all of you.
No, I thought so too. I thought it was a fun way because you had the objective of taking the Prime Ball, right? And then you also had the refight on their terms, like on their side of the map, to be able to put it in. And there was a lot. I mean, we had so many times where, like, as we were figuring it out, the different types, like, you know, like you had the Muriel dunk, you had like all these things, but sometimes it was just always like the setup wasn't always perfect. We needed to clear out and set up vision, and like, you know, there was a lot of stuff that went into it, and it's like they have time to set up first, like, and we're gonna have to go into them, and it was so much fun. Now I don't know, like the mini Prime is still really cool. I love mini Prime. The deer is okay. It's not still super exciting, but it's an okay idea. Again, it just, I don't know, I think what I hate the most is the AoE damage on all the turrets and or inhib or the base itself. I just don't like that idea. I would much rather do similar to what a Pred and every other MOBA has done, where you just give a lane pushing buff, give everybody a little bit of a buff and a beefy way to move the minions. And again, but you have to make minions matter.
I was gonna say, don't remove that if you're not gonna fix everything else first.
Yeah.
Because if you remove that in current Overprime and just remove that, games will go to 2 hours long, because that's the only way to end games on a consistent basis. I'm also gonna double down that Muriel Dunk is a balanced mechanic, and I will fight all of you on that one as well. I swear to God. Now, Kwong, fine.
You're really confident in your fighting abilities.
I know, right?
You that Kwong Dunk is a little ridiculous, but Muriel Dunk balanced mechanic, I will fight you.
He really wants to wrestle JVN.
I think that Overprime, and you guys both said it, I think Overprime has the best opportunity to make things their own. And I do hate that it feels like they've gone off of that. It seems like they're trying to appeal to two sides of the coin and ending up with a worse product in the end. And it's because it's every new patch, we're excited. I know we're excited about this one. We're excited to see the skins. We're excited to see the update. And I don't want, with every patch that's come out so far, where it's like, okay, I was so excited for said champion to get released, and then it was dull after 3 days. Okay, 2 weeks from now, we're getting another new champion. Okay, I'm so excited. New champion comes out, done with it within a week. And it's because the core gameplay is just not good enough. And it's because, like Mingus and Jelly are both saying, they are appealing to two different camps, and it's not accomplishing either. It's just not quite substantial enough. So they need to shake it up. I don't know if this patch will have it. I'm hoping that, because they keep talking like they're going into they're going to be done with early access soon. And I just don't feel like this game is ready for being out of early access. At least with early access, they can still claim to be working on everything behind the scenes. So unless there's some major change that's going to happen post-release, I don't know if this game is ready for that, personally. Like all the marketing that they're going to push to try and get more players in and all that. I just don't think that people will stick it out.
Well, let's go ahead and move on from Overprime. Let's talk about the differences between Predecessor and Overprime. And the difference we're going to be talking about this week is the way interrupts work. So in Overprime, if you're thinking about using an ability and somebody interrupts you, it goes on like double the fucking cooldown that it normally would. Like you get your ability goes on full cooldown if you get interrupted in Overprime. Whereas Predecessor, like if you cast like a Countess ult and you haven't dealt damage yet, if you get interrupted, you can just recast that ultimate as soon as you hit the ground. Howie starts to pop up in the air, you interrupt him. If he hasn't dealt damage with the rockets, he gets to come back. He just gets to pop right back up in the air and cast it again. And I think that both games need to kind of meet somewhere in the middle on this. It's just very frustrating at Overprime to have your ability go on absolute full cooldown because Decker hit you at the right moment. And a lot of times it's not even planned or predicted, that she just happened to stun you when you were about to use your ability, and it goes on full fucking cooldown. And then Predecessor, on the other hand, like what's the skill expression there? Like I did predict that Kira was about to, well, Kira's a bad example, but I did predict, that Howitzer was about to use his ultimate, because you could always tell when Howitzer was about to use his ultimate, and I interrupted it, but then he just flew up in the air anyway and killed my carry anyway. Like, what was the point of me throwing that stasis bomb out if he's just going to be able to redo it?
Yeah, I completely agree. And honestly, I think the middle ground is setting a time frame.
Yeah.
That if it's X time over the cast and it gets interrupted, cooldown. If it's before that time, it doesn't go on cooldown, right? Or even you go to the route that some games have taken, that if an ultimate gets interrupted before it does damage, it goes on half cooldown. Right? That you do something where it doesn't feel as bad as if I just get stunned out of my ultimate, that I go on 120-second cooldown, even though it did nothing. Now I'm on 60-second, which still feels bad, but not as much. But even if you make it consistent, that if it's anything over half a second past the start of the cast, you go on half cooldown or full cooldown, whatever they decide to do. And if it's before that, it refunds, right? Because then you know as the decker throwing your Q, right? You know what that threshold is. All right, I need to wait. I just count one, right? That you say, okay, they're ulting one, throw. All right, and from there, now you know it's half cooldown. right? Because then it's consistent. You have a very consistent, predictable way to know that that ability is now on cooldown versus being able to be recast. And I think that's where my frustration with Predecessor comes in sometimes with ultimates. I get to the point where I'm on Kira and I press my R and she hasn't even, the little circle, the decal on the ground hasn't even appeared yet from what my damaging area is. And I get stunned and it does go on full cooldown. And I'm like, but I didn't manipulate the game in any way, shape, or form. I didn't do any damage. I didn't nothing. And I'm on full cooldown now. But then other times the same exact scenario and it'll refund me. And it's like, so what changed? I have no idea what was different between these two instances to know what I need to be on the lookout for the next time. And I think that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, I think Countess is another good one. Like Countess getting CC'd out of her thing, and then she gets to put you into a full suppress once she's back out of whatever CC you put onto her if you didn't blow her up, and she gets that massive heal and all that stuff. I mean, I know, like, I'm going to use League for example. They have like a really good, fairly defined priority system that goes along with it, and then also some of them are unstoppable when cast. I mean, we didn't even talk about this with Kira. Like Kira going untargetable or whatever as well. Like that's still such a weird thing. I know that's in
our questions. We'll cover that in a bit.
Yeah, I know we will. But it's still just like a weird interaction and how that works in a third-person MOBA. And like, is there space for that kind of stuff of being like unstoppable once you've pressed your button? Like, let's say, for example, Countess, CC, like, should she just be unstoppable so she can get her C when she pressed the button first? I don't know, but there's an argument to be made there versus like, like you can't CC like some champions that have already pressed their ultimate, like they're now unstoppable or they've got so much mobility that you can't do anything about it. And I think Howitzer's a really good example, especially in Predecessor, where it's like, man, I should be rewarded for seeing that he's about to do the thing and I interrupt him. And the same thing with their silencing, which is another interrupt technically, and how that works. And then sometimes you get silenced out of it and it went on cooldown anyway, just because you got silenced versus being CC'd. The interactions are so widely varied that it becomes, and this is, to me, this is in both games. I know we're supposed to be comparing the two, but honestly, in both games, it feels very inconsistent about when interactions are going. And then you throw ping into the mix and it's even more asinine. And they need to clearly define how those interactions work. And I don't think either studio has done a good job with it.
You can interrupt Rampage ult if it's while he's growing. You can interrupt it. Maybe that's silence though. I don't know. I don't know about stun. No, silence is one of the most busted CCs in Predecessor, bar none. There's literally nothing in the game that is stronger than silence. Because that will stop in progress abilities. That will stop abilities you haven't cast yet. If you were thinking about casting an ability, it stops you from thinking about it. It's that strong. Like, it's just absolutely insane. A couple times, I never felt more frustrated than when I was playing Countess when she first came out. And I would be in her ultimate, and he would just toss a nade down. And nope, no more ultimate for you. Sucks to suck. I didn't do damage, nothing. And then it goes on full cooldown afterwards, which pisses me off even further because I didn't get any of the benefits from my ultimate. I got all the downsides, right? Oh man, I hate it.
The example that I had of that was I Bellica ulted, had the pistol out, the sound effect played from her pistol, but Richter hit me with silence, therefore pistol did not shoot. Did not deal damage. I'm like, what the actual fuck? Like,
in progress abilities being interrupted by silence is wild. Now, if it's a channeled ability, that's slightly different because that's a consistent thing you're doing. But if it's a one press Countess ult, Bellica ult, something like that, right? Dumb. That's so dumb that it interrupts an in progress ability.
Hey, what's up, Soulmo?
I think that's part of it too, is like so many of these, and I know we mostly are referring to ultimates, but they have like such big windups, even though it's an like instant ability. So they're almost being channeled without being a channel. And that's, I think, where it's like, it feels weird that's how just, the interaction goes through, because the animations tend to be fairly flamboyant or obvious that, hey, I'm about to do something cool with my R button. Yeah, I don't know. It feels bad on both games. Honestly, actually, I think it's worse in Pred sometimes because of the exact, like, I wish almost it was, because OP, you interrupt an ultimate, or if you get your ultimate interrupted, you're just like, well, I know that I'm not going to be able to reuse those. At least it's consistent in that regard. Whereas with Predecessor, I mean, like I was playing Countess and I was like, oh shit, I got knocked out of my ultimate, and then I was like, oh wait, I just have to wait and I can cast it again. Like, okay, cool. Like I was just okay. I mean, yeah, I took a lot more damage than I was initially expecting because I thought I'd be able to do my full combo, but I got interrupted while going, and then they hit me first. I think the suppress should start when the animation starts, personally. I think that's to me where it's a consistency of like at what point does this consider I am now unable to be interrupted because I've already started the thing. And if I can still be interrupted, like let's say I'm in full animation of it and my team can save me from the damage or from whatever and interrupt the Countess, then she shouldn't get the cooldown back. She obviously went in to use it. She shouldn't get it back because we played around her abilities. Like, so and again, it's the inconsistency of knowing when is it going to give it back to her versus it's not. Because I'm sure that carry who I was about to kill got interrupted and then killed again anyway because I got to press my R button twice. Was a little bit bummed, you know.
It's a unique situation to be sure. But I had a game on Countess where I was ulting Drongo, but before I ulted him, he pressed Q. My ult started. He was actually suppressed. I was in the animation as the grenade landed, then went off, and that pulled me out of my ultimate on the guy that used the ability. Like, it's just insane. Like some of the levels that this goes to, and the inconsistency is the worst part, right? Like it's terrible, and it needs to be more consistent across the board for both games.
You laughing at the Steel comment?
No, I'm laughing at Jalay, but the Steel one's also pretty good. But no, him saying that he needs to be going like this as a meme, basically, of fucking Pred boys. Oh boy, no, yeah. It's weird.
It's one of the many differences between Predecessor and Overprime, and it's one of the ones where I think that both need to change things and meet a little bit in the middle, because it's a little. It's a little too oppressive in Pred to be able to recast your ultimate. It's a little too oppressive in Overprime that you just get straight up shut down by a random Decker ball that bounced weird.
Yep.
Well, and with
because like Viking said, with everything with having such massive windups in the vast majority of ultimate abilities, right? Doing the thing I said about just having a timer, even if it's 1 second, right? After 1 second, if you interrupt them, it goes on full or half cooldown. Before 1 second, it gets refunded, right? If that's the threshold, then I at least know what it is. It's consistent across the board. And if I have to do a 1 count before I throw my Decker Q, I'll do a 1 count before I throw my Decker Q. Like, fine. And I think and 50% cooldown instead of 100% cooldown on interrupt also I think would be huge.
Yeah, I think that would be the best change that I would like to see. Yeah, just a 50% cooldown just overall.
Thoughts on Xena ult following you even if you blink? I think it's fine because if you use that against her, put her into a worse position than she was anticipating. Xena ult now isn't enough to usually execute people anymore. It used to execute people because their damage was so good, but now I don't think it's that bad, Rafjod. I think it's fine.
And be playing around his ultimate, not letting the ultimate play around you. Wait for her to come out of it, then blink, or wait for her to or that she's looking like she's going to engage and blink away first. Yeah. Don't blink in the middle of it.
It kind of sucks if you're by yourself, but like if you're around a tower and you can blink into your tower and put her into your tower, that's fun.
Yeah.
Or put her into your team. Like if you blink into your team, it spreads the damage out too, so it's a lot less likely she's going to kill you. Then your team could follow up. I don't know. I think that's kind of actually a fun interaction, but I could definitely see why people would be frustrated with it.
Well, yeah, because she goes untargetable while doing all that and stuff and she's just blinking around all over the place. I think it's cool, but I think the two, when we're talking about the difference, like Overprime and why it feels so annoying when you get your ultimate or whatever, especially for your on the ground melee. The people who like, you know, have height to their advantage, like where they can get up in the air and use their ultimates and stuff like that. To me, that's when you don't notice it as much. Like a howitzer being able to get his ultimate off, because he launches up into the middle of the sky. It's really difficult to catch him in the middle of his animation to knock him out of that. So if he hits R, he's probably getting his full ultimate off. You know, like, and now with Gideon has a CC immunity for the first CC that hits him while he's channeling his ultimate. So all of like on the ground, I mean, Muriel, she hits ultimate, she's going up in the air and flying too. There's no real interrupt on her. So it's like, it's the eyes on the ground that really, to me, feel like when you press button, you get interrupted, it's like extra suck because there's just nothing else you could do. You've now used your biggest cooldown and you just, got knocked out of it by somebody hitting a basic ability that's going to be up in 3 seconds. And so I do agree that it just needs to be more fidelity in each game. There needs to be more understanding of when is my thing going to be interrupted? How is that going to impact the game? And then I agree with the cooldown reductions. Like if you get knocked out, but especially if you haven't make it 25%, 50%, I don't care. Some kind of refund on it. It's still on cooldown, so you don't get immediately depressed again, but it can still shape its way around in the team fights. I think that's especially more valuable in Predecessor than Overprime, because Overprime team fights are already pretty back and forth, and a lot of it might have to do with the fact that you get so many ultimate abilities or big wombo combo abilities interrupted during team fights, and so they don't end as quickly as they do in Predecessor, where they can still get those team fighting ultimates off after CC is stopped, which is kind of nuts.
Well, let's move on now from we'll have a different differences next week. If you guys have any that you want us to talk about, let us know in the comments and we'll cover them, the differences between Predecessor and Overprime. Well, let's move on to the questions from Discord. First one is from Ike the Funny. For the remaining heroes that aren't out, how would you change anyone's kit for the remainder of the CC that's not in the game? Taunts, fears, banishes, trembles, disarms. I think a great example of that, and I keep bringing up Fault when I think about this kind of stuff. Fault added a disarm into Greystone's kit. There was a lot of great things about Fault, but there is definitely a reason Fault is gone now. I kind of feel like I skirt around that a bit too much. Yes, there were good things about Fault, but there is a reason that we are not. Fault doesn't have a segment anymore on FTM. Like they did a lot of things wrong too, but they did a lot of things right. And one of the things they did right was Greystone's kit having a disarm in it, because it fed into his kit. It fed into his identity of being a backline slayer that could jump on top of a ADC, disarm them so that the ADC is no longer healing off of their basic attacks, and then just mow them down. So I think Greystone for both games, if they could throw a disarm on him like they did with Fault, I think that would be amazing.
Yep. Disarm on Greystone or a disarm on Terra also I think could be a cool addition, as well as a taunt. A taunt on Terra could also be.
That's exactly who I was thinking for a taunt. Yeah.
Yep. Taunt. I think taunts are the thing that both Overprime and Predecessor have not messed enough with. Aurora in Overprime has a taunt on minions with her right click, but not on heroes. I want a hero taunt where that and Ethereal's got Marina's Charm, which is very similar to a taunt, but I think it's that taunts and disarms are things that are sorely missing from these games for sure.
So when I read this one, my eyes, and I don't know which champion to put it on, but a banish. I love the idea of a banish because it CCs them during the entire time. They can't take damage, they can't do things, they can't move or whatever. They're just banished. I love that idea. I think that's such a cool concept. They have it in World of Warcraft. I think it's super, super interesting and neat. I think it would be amazing. Now, this is the part, though, that I have to go into is there's no real good cleanse items. And I think if you have more interesting, unique CCs, I think you need a better cleanse than what is available because it's like there's no, in League of Legends, you can take it as a summoner spell. And there's no way to game around that unless you go into maybe an item that's not beneficial to your kit. And so you have to force an index if more unique CCs start to come into the game that do stuff like that, where it's like, okay, well, I'm an 80 carry, and the only way I can get out of it is if I go into this item, but that item doesn't help me do more damage or doesn't help me do this thing better. So it's just I'm kind of fucked if I, get. That's where I would. The only thing, but I thought a banish would be super cool in the game personally.
I like the way Here's the Storm does banishes. Anubarak is one of the ones that banishes. He wraps you up in a cocoon. Your team can actually DPS that cocoon down and break it to get you out of it earlier. I think that's a really fun mechanic. But while you're in the cocoon, you're not taking damage, you're not dealing damage, you're not doing shit. And it's used as an initiate. You take, if they have somebody that's just dealing massive amounts of damage, you cocoon them at the start of the fight, then you dive into their back line, fuck them up, and then wait for that cocoon to drop and then do something.
And see, Fox McCloud brings up my exact thought on banishes, unfortunately, is that banishes are anti-fun for the player that's banished.
Yeah. True.
And that like hard anti-fun, like it's not like Revenant where the both of you go in and now it's a skill game of like, can I beat him at his own game or can I get away? A Banish is just a straight up, you don't get to play the game for 5 seconds, congrats, and then you move on to something else. And that feels bad because a Banish, to be effective as a Banish and not just rather be a stun, needs to be longer than 2 seconds. And anything longer than 2 seconds is going to feel so bad, it's ridiculous. 2-second stuns already feel like crap, right? But anything over that on a Banish would just feel worse. And you'd have to find a way to make that. I think the Cocoon is a great way to do that, where like it's like, yes, am I still not playing the game? Absolutely. But my team can do something to help me get back into the game faster. That's super cool. But a flat, just like, and you're gone, sucks. It feels like shit.
So, well, in that same vein, then, I agree with you. A Banish could feel that way, especially in a MOBA. But what about like, again, using World of Warcraft, like Sheep? In Sheep, you get sheeped for however long you're in the Sheep. Obviously, there's diminishing returns and all that stuff, and I think they would have to start figuring that out in the games like this too, if they add in more CC type abilities. But if the enemy hits you, you get knocked out of the Sheep. Also, while you're sheeped, you get regenerated health. So if you were low health, it regens your health. So there's a kind of a give and take. Yes, you're taking them out of the fight as long as you don't hit them with AoE ability or do something along those lines. But your teammates can't do anything to help you out of it. They're just in it, but you come back out of it with more health than you went into it. You know what I mean? So that could be a fun way to. I think that's
mutant Mako and Overprime, right? Like other than the health regen increase. Honestly, there's more times than not that I get mutant Poe in a team fight in Overprime. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to take damage for a little bit because you can't hit me. Like,
yeah.
I think that there's a lot of fun CCs, like that we're calling them CCs. There's a lot of other ways to interact in the game, and they're just not using them. And I think the taunt, fears, disarms, like those ones especially, like a fear would be really neat. I don't know who could use a fear, but I'm sure there's a way to make it. What would be cool actually, and this is maybe like Countess when she does her ultimate. People who are immediately in the area get a small fear because that's so scary. I don't know. There's ways to play around it. I think would be really, really cool. And they just don't. It's just kind of the most boring parts of CC, which is just you got stunned. And yay.
You know what would be fun too? Stitches does this in Here's the Storm. I think it's Tom Kinch in League of Legends. I think if Richter's ultimate instead of the chesticles wrap around, pull them into his belly, and then he can walk with them for a limited amount of time.
Yeah. I agree with that.
That would be awesome.
Cool. And you could proactively use it on because that's the thing with at least in League, Tom Kench can do it for allies or enemies. So he can use it to save, or he can use it to grab somebody and they're taking damage while he's walking with them and he's slowed and all that stuff. But 100%, that would be so sick actually on Richter. that would make his kit feel, especially once he gets into Overprime, that would make his whole thing feel unique and fun. Oh man, I hope somebody's listening. They need to. Oh, that would be so cool. That's such a good idea. Holy shit.
Mooning the enemy team. That's a better fear. Perfect. I think it's a great fear right there.
When I said fear, the only one I could think of was Morgesh, but I think the only thing you could put a fear on her with her is maybe her swarm. Whenever she turns into the insects, maybe people run away from her. I don't know.
And I was thinking very similar to the vein that he had with Countess, but on Morgesh, is if her ultimate kills somebody, because it's the giant version of her. If that kills somebody, it fears the area around her.
Ooh, that would be nice.
That to me was the place that I thought of a fear being implemented out of the Paragon heroes we know.
Yeah.
I mean, Zinx, great. Instead of a bouncing stun, a bouncing fear. That's perfect. Let's just do that instead. No, but. Yeah, I think there's still plenty of opportunities for other forms of CC that have not been explored in Paragon, Overprime, or Predecessor.
Yeah.
I really like that on Morgesh because it incentivizes you to actually use your ultimate in a situation where it's a little bit dangerous for you. Because the way Morgesh works is you just run the fuck away from the fight and then you ult where nobody can see you and they die. If you have no idea where they are around their team, like you would have to be able to know where they are in their team that fear from the ultimate is actually going to take effect. Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Right? Because you can try to use it more in team fights versus just trying to get a solo pick. Because you still would, like, let's say, for example, you're in here 1v1 or whatever, and you see them trying to back at the tower and they have enough, you can kill them with it. It's still effective. You should still press R. but in team fights, it makes her ultimate that much more impactful for the rest of the team and feel that much more interesting, and people would have to play around it. It shows a lot more skill expression, which I think is always good. It's a really good idea. Again, hopefully somebody's fucking listening and can put that in there, who's not scared to make a change and make something happen.
Horseman brings it up, but Atlas and Smite has a pull, grab, and a toss. And I think Atlas is a great version of new forms of CC. Skarner Ultimate in League of Legends, where he stabs into somebody, can drag them around the map for a couple seconds. Also a super cool form of CC, right? Like, these are options that have not been explored at all yet. And like Aran in Ethereal has the grab and toss, right? So that's already there. But I would love to see more of those kind of things where even though Skarner Ultimate is basically just a pull and a stun mixed in one, but it still like feels unique.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It still feels unique in the way that it's executed. And I think that's the biggest thing is don't just give me, I throw a thing and they get stunned. Find a new way to make me stun people. Find a new way to make me do the CC I've already been doing in a different way. And I think Mako shows a way to do that, right? Like the ball going out there and stunning people when it explodes, picking them up and stunning them when it explodes. It's a stun, but it's a very cool new form of stun, right? Like,
it's like a displacement, right? That's what I was going to say. A displacement stun, like a Gragas Ultimate, where it does a big AoE cask explode that knocks people in various directions. You can knock them to you, you can knock them away from you.
He says this, but he was just complaining about Howitzer Mine yesterday. So
but that's the thing is it's really interesting that a howitzer can do that knock up and create the chaos that he can do. The problem is that all of the rest of his kit creates so much safety as a mage that it's like it's more annoying, but it's still really impressive when you go up against a howitzer that knows what they're doing and they utilize the mine in either a disengage or as a way to create displacement from the rest of their team or whatever. It's a very, very cool ability. It just, in that instance, it drives me nuts because he can also do all the other stuff that makes him so annoying. But anyway, I think we've probably hit on everything, and I think you gave us a really good question. I hope that, again, one of the devs is listening to this and has some balls about them and can make something new and unique come to fruition here. I think Mako is a good example of some of that. But I do think that a lot of the characters that haven't been released yet can make some of these things happen, or characters that are already out. Like, I would love to see Wraith get a rework. Wraith right now is so boring to me. I wish he was different.
A lot of people disagree with that.
I know, but it was just me. His ultimate's stupid. It's so boring.
Well, that's the problem. Is he's a carry that has 3 utility abilities.
Yeah, he's boring.
Right, but like if the abilities did damage, he would have a lot more priority in his lane and a lot more fun mechanics to play around, and he doesn't because 3 of his abilities don't do damage.
I think if you could make his other abilities deal damage, that would allow you to decrease the power of his snipe, which can be insanely oppressive. So that would be the only way I would agree to that at all. Is if you nerfed his snipe a little bit
around it, but
yeah. Let's move on to the next question here. Coming from Crimson Rage. Question all-star in the FTM chat. By the way, guys, FTM chat is linked in the video description below. Check it out if you have any questions for us. Post it in there. We don't answer them in the Discord. We answer them here. So don't expect an immediate answer if you put that question in the Discord. Crimson Rage says, when should either game begin to heavily focus on lore and world building? And what do you think would be the best way to do so if you were in charge? For example, cinematics, events, etc. I like the way Ethereal did it. Ethereal brought the community in and had like a little competition for people to write lore, and they ended up with some really good lore out of that. I think there are plenty of people in both the Predecessor and Overprime has actually done quite a bit of work on their lore. They have done world building. There is a world in Overprime where all these heroes come from. They do all have backstories. They're not the same as Paragon's backstories. The only real Predecessor lore we have is that it's Predecessor. The events of Predecessor happened before the events of Paragon. That's the only real lore that we have from Pred.
Huntress hates Countess.
And that Huntress hates Countess.
Sorry, Kira hates Countess.
So I think they just need to leverage the fans. There are plenty of people that would love to just, for free, write tons of lore for both of these games. And so they have a resource right now that they can tap into, and then maybe later down the line the cinematics and events and stuff. But right now they just need lore.
There's still that guy on Reddit that's still doing the Chimera and Phase ship postings on the Paragon subreddit. Long after Fall died, he's still doing it. And I applaud him for his dedication to his craft. Okay. Every time I see one of those pop up, I'm like, damn, this guy has got more dedication than I have to anything. Like, holy shit. Just get that guy in there, rein him in a little bit, but put him out there, let him do his thing. It'll be great.
I think I'm of the camp of, if you're going to do lore, actually do lore. If you're not gonna, if you're don't do lore. It's like, just you pick one. Like, I'm okay if Predecessor was like, you know what, we don't really need to focus on lore. Who cares? Like, that's just not our shtick. Cool, that's fine for me. I don't need to know and understand why said characters are doing what they're doing. I don't ever need that personally. But if you're going to start some kind of narrative, then put together a real narrative. Like, actually put it together, make it make sense. I do think Overprime does a pretty good job of their lore building. Like, it's kind of subtle. It's not like, I think League did it a fairly good way too. Like, League, for most of their time, there was some lore there. A lot of it was hinted at. You weren't really sure what was going on sometimes, but it was interesting. It made the game like, oh, okay, so that's why so-and-so doesn't like so-and-so or whatever, or why voice lines work the way they do. And that's fine. That's okay. That's good lore building. It's a little bit more subtle. But I think that's the thing. It's like, it feels like Pred hasn't committed to whether or not they want to do lore or they want to put time into doing the lore. And cinematics, like, what cinematics? Like, I don't know how many Pred cinematics they've done. Overprime's done cinematics, and they've done some really cool, interesting.
And it ties in with their lore, yeah.
Yeah, and they're they're opening, like, I mean, I skip it now, but that's still one of, like, when I first watched that cinematic,
you can skip it.
Yeah, when you guys introduced me to Overprime and I watched that, I was like, oh, like, I was like, oh, dude, this is dark and kind of gritty and like, ooh, like, what's going on? Like, Sev, and like, it just made it feel interesting, and that's fine. And I like, again, Ethereal is a really good example. It's tie-in, but not like in your face, like beating you over the head. Lore, 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 lore. I don't think it needs to go full RPG. Again, I think it can be subtle and fun. Make voice lines about it. You can have it affect skins and do stuff like that and tie those things in. But just pick whether you're going to do it or not. Don't half-ass it. If you're not going to do it, then that's fine. Just don't do it. Just don't be that part of your dev. And I think that's where I get annoyed, is when it's like, it feels like, okay, you just make this the most basic of lore just so you can try to have an event. Fuck off.
So to me, the question, when should they begin it? Now, right at this moment. But I'm not saying go whole hog. You shouldn't have cinematics out the gate.
Unless you do them well.
Oh, and I'm looking at you. You shouldn't have cinematics out the gate. You shouldn't have the big scaling events that's going on. You shouldn't have all of these things, but do something, right? Even if it's small, write one story that, like, so Huntress is the Kira. I just want to call her Huntress because that's her name in my head. Mm-hmm. She's the perfect example for this, in that they started out her teaser by saying this is a person that doesn't like Countess, right? And she's hunting after Countess. That's what her motivation is. Fantastic. That was a great little nugget of lore to come out of there, right? When Kira released, it doesn't need to be in the game. It can just be on your website. That when you're talking about Kira, you just provide a couple paragraph like description of like, Kira's here because Countess killed her family. Just even rip off the Terra lore. Just swap out Terra with Kira and just call it a day. Like, do something, right? That makes it just take that extra step forward. That just does something that then can tie into your event of Kira hunting Countess, right? And all of those things that then can be attached to all of these little details, right? But I would rather they don't do a heavy push all at one time. Do it over time. Make it feel natural. Make it feel like the world is being built as you're building it, right? Do these things that can help you slowly garner that attention to the lore. League of Legends is a prime example of this, right? Yes, they went through and kind of changed the fundamentals of their lore quite a while ago. But since then, as they do rework, they don't just go through and drop, like, we dropped 50 pages of lore all at this moment. Go read it all, right? That doesn't work, right? They do, like, this character got reworked, so we're going to touch on their lore and add a little bit to it and expand on it a little bit.
Sorry, I'm just reading chat. No, you keep going.
But so like their lore is being touched on and added to gradually over time as they world build more, and it makes it feel like it's being built around you rather than being thrown at you that it was built, and that's what sucks. And like where they need to do it now. Overprime, they have the lore that's coming out with the characters, and it's all right, but they did that cinematic at the beginning and have done nothing with it.
Yeah,
right. That to me is where I'm sitting there like, you could have done like what is this? Like I my curiosity keeps going back to Dakima, right? Like tell me what's going on with Severog killing this tree and why everybody was trying to stop him. Like come on, like let's do that. Let's get those things going to understand more about these characters.
I will say to Delay's point, I don't want lore to overshadow or take over in game dev, right? Like I don't think any of us are saying that, right? Like we want the game to be good first, but like don't pretend to have lore and then do nothing with it. And I think we are all kind of saying the same thing. It's like Overprime has kind of leaned a little bit more into lore and has given us a little bit more with lore. They could do a little bit more. It would be great to get another cinematic. But again, I will say here, and this is for both games, I'll be like, you know what? Instead of making me a cinematic, just keep making the game better. Like I'm okay with that. If you're making the game better, you know, like I don't know. It just feels like it's for Predecessor. It feels like they are kind of like playing with the idea of lore, but they're not committing to it. It just feels like a tease, and it's kind of like, what are you really doing? And then Overprime, they have lore, but they haven't really fleshed it out and aren't really continuously doing it. It's just something that has developed, but it's not like really strong yet. It's getting
the lore in Overprime is there, but it feels disconnected from each other.
Sure.
Right. And so it's just kind of like these weird verticals of lore that don't quite fit in with each other yet. And that's what I would want to see more of from them, is that interconnection of all the lores together. To Jalay's point of minute 5 Jelly, Pred's event doesn't make any sense. To minute 45 Jelly, do something, right? That's my point. It doesn't make any sense because they didn't do something about it. They didn't put the lore there. They didn't incentivize this weird lore-based event with any lore. So it doesn't make sense.
I'm gonna go throw this out here right now too. Let me skip the fucking Overprime cinematic a little faster. Or just give me the option to not play it every time. I've heard so many times, Dakima, the will of vigorous life. And then I can finally fucking move on. Like, oh my God.
At this point, I hear it in my sleep sometimes. I'm just laying in bed and Dakima. Yes.
The will of vigorous life.
They touched on, I don't know if it's that or something else, but they did say that they want to put on where they can say don't show again as a toggle or something like that. But yeah,
please.
It is a bit much. I actually think of the some of the lore. I think Muriel's lore is actually pretty cool. I think there's a lot of good. Like at least if you go onto Overprime and you click on each of the champions, you get a little snippet of their lore and what they're motivated by, who they know, who they're connected to, and at least it doesn't change the game at all. Like you don't have really unique voice lines, interactions between the champions and stuff like that, like you get in League. I think does Smite do that? I don't know if they do, but anyway. But at least it's something. At least there's something there. And then Predecessor still has a lot to go if they want lore to mean something. So if they're going to make it mean something, then I think, yeah, like Jelly said, maybe make it sooner than later, but not at the expense of gameplay. Like if you're just more focused on gameplay right now, then that's fine. Just don't pretend like you're doing lore at the same time.
Theoretically, those should be two different teams. I realize that sometimes that's not the case, right? But theoretically, they should be two different teams that your lore team can say, here, we did X thing, right? Here you go, put it in the game.
I'm just saying they both have communities that are a vast resource that would be happy to write their lore for them.
Hey, if you just tell the guy that he can have Chimera and FaZe fall in love together, he will write all of your lore, I promise you.
I want to move on, though, to the next question. Please. Another one from Crimson Rage. Which game do you think allows players a greater skill expression either as a team or individually? I think that one is a simple, straight up, cut and dry answer. Overprime allows more individual skill expression. Predecessor allows a lot more team skill expression.
1000%.
Oh, I see. I disagree. I think it's both Overprime. I think that
really,
So I think team fights in Overprime, because there's a lot more maneuverability. The time to kill isn't as. I mean, it can be really short, right? If you manage to put together a really strong wombo combo, which to me speaks to team expression. Like if we'd come together as a team and really put together this moment, we can make something cool happen. But I also think that there's a lot more of like playing around cooldowns and understanding when certain cooldowns and abilities are available and which champions do what in Overprime. Whereas in Predecessor, it's very rare, at least in the games that I've been in. Maybe I just haven't been in enough high skilled games. It's almost always like little skirmishes that happen here or there where somebody is not paying attention to the minimap and not understanding that a skirmish is taking place or is doing their own thing or whatever, and it just one person stepped out of line just a little too much because they didn't have the vision. Fucking sucks in that game so bad that they just get blown up and die, or the wombo combo is so strong on one team versus another team that everybody just dies. It's in the combo. It's just, I don't know, like watching that video that you put together with Raven and all that and seeing that everybody just die in like what buttons did anybody on the enemy team get to press there? There's literally nothing they could have done to really prevent themselves in that moment from getting it. Wasn't an outplay, you just didn't get to play. And I think that there's an availability for that to happen in some cases, but it's so heavy, and to me in Predecessor, where in Overprime you can have those moments happen, but it's really things that the stars really have to align to be able to make those kinds of moments happen. And I think that's, at least for me, more fun. And does that make sense? And so that's where I think
I see what you're saying, but I think you're actually arguing more for the team skill expression in Predecessor than Overprime by what you're saying. Because
you all pressed one button. You hit a Q, Raven hit R, and Gideon hit R.
Yeah,
that's it.
But our team was positioned properly in that fight. Their team was not positioned properly in that fight.
Why weren't they positioned properly? Because they were lacking vision. They didn't know all of you.
But that's not the point of the question, right? The team cohesion and the team play is better in Predecessor. Right, because you're able to do more with that team coordination. In Overprime, there's an aspect that team fights almost turn into a slap fight, because I land my Gideon R on everybody, but the fight's gonna go long enough that Gideon R almost means nothing, right? Like, because everyone can reposition or do something with their abilities to make that change differently, right? And that's to me less fun, because it's less. If my team got a good drop on somebody, it means way less in Overprime than it does on Predecessor.
Yeah, and I think just positioning, like if your team positions well in Predecessor, then you will win that fight. If somebody steps out of position on your team, doesn't have to be you, then they fuck it up, and then you lose the team fight. So I think
that's solo expression, not team expression. Because if one person on your team does something, that's their solo choice to move a little bit too far forward, and then you just get, I don't know. I see what you guys are saying. I think my issue with Predecessor is always that it's never, to me, it's not skill expression to just hit your buttons at the same time. There's not necessarily like always. No, I'm not saying that there's no coordination at all. I'm not saying that. Like, I do think that there are coordinated team fights that happen, or coordinated opportunities where they're moving around together and playing around the little bit of vision they do have. It just doesn't feel like there's a skill expression in there. It's just everybody dies so fast in Predecessor. You don't have to be skilled to press your one button and get a pentakill. Like, that's, to me, that's not a skill expression. That's just the way that the team operates, or that's the way the deaths operate in the game. Personally, that's how I look at it. Everybody just dies. You press R, they die. Like, it's just like, if you get onto one guy and you hit your R button, they're probably gonna die. And maybe there's something that people really enjoy about that, but for me, that's not a skill expression. That's just how strong certain abilities and items or certain characters get to the point where they can just do that. And to me, that's more frustrating than it is fun, and it's not a skill. It's just
the example you used, though. Their team was out of position. We were in a good position to capitalize on that. Our Grux landed a really good pull, which I was able to capitalize on with a really good seismic assault into a bomb. The Grux also ulted, and then the Kira was able to jump in and also ult on top of all of them. So that wasn't just one ability that wiped the entire team. Sure. That was, it wasn't a combination.
Wouldn't have led to Bellica, which wouldn't have led to Kira, and that's team expression. That's not individual expression.
Maybe I used that one example poorly. I apologize. That skill layering is a skill expression, but I don't think that that's necessarily a kudo to Predecessor. I think that's just that it happened to work out. I don't think that most games work that way in Pred. that was a unique situation that was really cool, but I don't think it
no
happens
games
that
work
often.
like that in Overprime. If I land a Grux pull into a Bellica knockup and then I go in there with Murdoch, right?
Yeah.
That same combo is not going to happen because the enemy team will still be able to do things afterwards that make my combo mean less.
Okay. So then I guess we could make an argument that neither one has team skill expression.
I think Predecessor is really good team skill expression.
I
think whether you win or lose is far more dependent on your team in Predecessor than Overprime. I think Overprime, you can individually carry a game if you are good enough. You cannot do that in Predecessor. I mean, you can if the skill variance is big enough, of course, but you really need your team to play well in Predecessor in order for you to win. Whereas you don't really need your team that much in Overprime.
I still disagree. I think both games are so dependent on how good your jungler is and how well the team plays around your jungler. But I think in Pred, your jungler can solo carry. Like we saw that one game where you got just out jungled, and their jungler was able to make it to where every lane was not able to play the game very well. And that's to me, that's a solo expression. There's no team environment there. That's that one.
In that game, though, I would not say that Kalari was the reason for her team being successful. Her team capitalized on Kalari being ahead. Right? That Kalari did not solo carry that game. Her team benefited, and her team became better than us because her team was playing more cohesively than we were.
So when is it? Where's the line of solo carry to team coordination around somebody doing things individually that puts their team ahead? Like I don't know where
we played against.
Yeah,
he was a solo carry character. If his team had played better around him, their team would have won. But he was playing solo better than his team was playing cohesively. We played better as a team, so we won that game. He's the perfect example of the difference between the two things.
Right, but at that again, I don't understand where the line is being drawn and where's the tilting point? Like it's like, and which game tilts that one way or the other better? I still think that we are mostly in agreement that in Overprime you have a lot more solo skill expression. I'm not saying that solo wins you the game, but I think you can have skills expressed in a solo situation more in Overprime than you can in Predecessor. Not that it doesn't happen in Predecessor, it just is not as frequent of an experience. I don't feel like I have as much control over making things happen sometimes in Predecessor versus in Overprime. But I think the team environment, and I don't know, man, this is a complicated question. I don't know where the line is drawn of like, I performed really well and I have great skill expression within my champion, but it might not mean that we win just because I'm really good at being able to play my champion by myself versus, you know what I mean, in one game or in the other. Like, I just don't know where that line is drawn, and maybe I'm misunderstanding the question.
That's why we have multiple people on this show, because we have multiple opinions on this stuff.
I guess. I just think that the time to kill is so short in Predecessor. It's hard to tell whether or not that is a singular skill expression or a team expression of skill coming together and making wombo combos happen or whatever. I don't know. Vision, I think, plays a large part of it. I think just map movement plays a huge part of it. Like who showed up first and who didn't. Like, I mean, that there could be arguments that's not the team playing around it. That's like the mid lane understanding that he needs to be there to be able to create the man advantage and all that stuff. That's solo skill expression, not team expression. And so it's like, where do you cut off to where it becomes team cohesiveness and making an expressive play? Actually, I think now that I think about it more, your highlight clip is showing that, like the Grux pull into the Q knockup into this, like those things came together as a team and showed your all individual skills coming together as one cohesive skill expression. I don't think that happens that often though in Predecessor versus in Overprime. Even if you end up not wiping the whole team, I do think that there's opportunity where each person's individual skill can be expressed in the team environment more often. Does that make sense? Maybe I explained it better.
It makes sense, but I think we're just looking at it from different angles. The way I look at it is, if the teams have to position correctly in order to fight, then I think that's team skill expression. Overprime, you don't have to be positioned completely correct. I mean, of course, you can't be stupid out of position, but you don't have to be completely 100% in great position when a team fight starts to win that team fight. As long as one person is laying it down, you're going to win. But in Predecessor, everybody has to be in their proper position if you're going to win that team fight, because if they're not, somebody's going to get picked like that, and then you're going to get rolled.
And I still think that's the fault of the solo, not as the team.
No, you're.
Yeah. I mean, you're relying on one person to be individually good. Yes.
But your team, it's more affecting your team than it is the solo in that particular case.
Right.
If you're out of position, if you take one person and pull them out of position in Overprime and the other 4 are in position, that team fight still is likely to be just fine for that team. If you pull the one person out of a team fight in Predecessor, that team fight is going to be drastically different because that one person's out of position. Right? So the team play matters more, because if you're not playing with your team cohesively and correctly, you will lose harder.
But that's not the question. It's greater skill expression. That was a question, not which team has better position.
So if one person on your team in Predecessor sucks and they're out of position, then your team is going to lose.
Okay.
See what I mean?
I'll agree to that. That's true. I mean, I still think
that is part of your team.
That's part of your team. Yeah. Your team skill is dependent on everybody, not just whatever. Let's move on from this question.
Fox kind of hit it a little bit, and then yes, please, let's move on. But to my point, the longer time to kill an OP allows more team plays, but that doesn't necessarily mean team synergy. And I think that's where I was saying is it's not team synergy is showing skill expression. It's just, I don't know.
But synergy is team expression. That's the whole point.
Well, no, not what? No, it's not. It's skill.
If you're
expression.
not playing synergized with your team, are you really a team at that point? Or are you 5 individuals?
No, the question was around skill expression.
And if you're not synergized with your team, your team expression is 0. Your individual expression is all of it.
Okay.
Right.
But but to have good team skill expression, you need everybody to have. You need synergy, right? Are we agreeing in that aspect? Okay. So time to kill, I think, has a big part on whether or not you're really getting synergy versus just I pressed two buttons at the same time as somebody else pressing 2 buttons. Whether we're on the same page or not, or we're both good at the game or not good at the game.
Because but that's where you're deferring between luck and synergy.
I'm talking about skill and being able to express your skill.
No, if I press my button at the same time as somebody else, if Grux pulls and I press Bellica knockup at the same time, just because I press the button at the same time, that's pure luck. That's not. If Grux didn't pull, it wouldn't mean anything. Right. Synergy is my Grux saying I'm going to pull. Okay, when I see the pull activate, then I'm knocking them up.
Right.
That's team expression. Is using that synergy to benefit your team.
Correct.
If you have 5 people that are not playing in synergy with each other, you have 5 individuals expressing their skill. That's the difference between individual skill expression and team skill expression.
Which you can get away with in Overprime. You can't really get away with that in Prep.
Yes.
I guess what I was getting at was that in Overprime, because time to kill is not so low, you have opportunity to showcase team skill expression. Whereas in Predecessor, because people die so fast, there's not really an expression of skill in that team fight. It was just.
I think team fights in Overprime are more fun, just overall, because there is that a much higher time to kill, but I don't think they're team skill expressive.
Okay.
I just think they're more fun. Let's move on to the next question, though. This one's coming from Jacka. Does the meta know what untargetable means? If not, they should release their own terms and have detailed documentation about their terms. He is, of course, referring to Kira's E, which states that she is untargetable. However, I think most of us, as soon as we read that, take that as she has iframes during her dash, much like Countess does in Shadow Slip, but that is not how it works. To be honest, I am still not 100% sure what the untargetable means. Can you just not target her with like a lock-on ability or what? Because like you would think that if you Shadow Slip as a tower is loading up at or if you E and do her dash as a tower is loading up at shot, that tower should not be able to target you. You shouldn't be hit. However, the tower will fucking hit you no matter. I sat there in the practice mode underneath a tower with Kira, just dashing my ass off, and never ever was able to. You would think I did it at enough times where I should have done it by accident if it was possible, and yeah, never happened. So,
to answer the question, I don't think they know what untargetable means, and or they're just making up their own version of what untargetable means. Because I can't see anybody using that. I haven't seen anyone use it to quote unquote dodge an ability that you couldn't just sidestep anyway, because everything is targeted. Most of them are skill shots. So if you aim like a rock and you throw it and she dashes, does she just not get hit by the rock? I don't think so. It seems like it doesn't work that way. It's really weird. And it seems very niche in where you would be able to be untargetable? Question marks. And it's such a short dash anyway that, okay, I couldn't target her for half a second. Oh, I can target her again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Like,
I think it's
maybe
silly.
it would let you dash away from a Countess ultimate, so that she would be able to target you dashing.
I believe you can, and like you said, it's so short that the time that this actually occurs is weird. But I feel like there have been multiple instances where an AoE ability on the ground, Howitzer Mine is a perfect example, right? That I'm dashed and I'm over the AoE. Definitively, this should hit me, and it goes off and nothing happens. Right? That I am untargetable from the things that are in the environment. I think untargetable in a 3D MOBA is a bad word to use to describe this effect, because untargetable sounds like I can't click them. And there are a lot of abilities that are not me clicking on them in these games, right? So untargetable seems like a very confusing word to use, because does it mean they just can't click on me? Does it mean that I'm not affected by abilities on the ground while I'm in this ability? Does it mean whatever it is? Because theoretically, if I'm on target, if there are two of us under tower, and I'm Kira, Mangoose is Rampage, I have tower aggro, and I press my E, tower aggro should switch on to Mangoose.
Correct. I don't think it does that.
And I agree.
No,
I don't believe that it does that.
Which
and that's where the confusion comes from. Is I'd love to see them explain this. And further than untargetable specifically, if you're introducing a new mechanic into your game, I don't care if it's in a different game, explain your mechanic.
Yeah.
Explain yourself.
Right, because we need it. Yeah, we need to know how it's going to be effective in this. Otherwise, we have this exact question where it's like, wait, I think I know what untargetable means. Why isn't it working the way I expect it to work? Then you're like beating it because you put yourself into a situation where like, oh, I'm just gonna drop tower aggro because I go untargetable when I hit E. Whoa! I just died to this tower because it stayed targeting me. Like,
I'm going to immune this gadget mine that's on my head. No, you're not.
No, you're not. No, you don't
exactly.
do that.
Like what?
It's already on your head. It's already targeted you.
Of untargetable in this instance.
We're a buzzword. This is it's not a buzzword. It's an interaction in a video game.
Yeah,
like,
we're grilling them for not explaining a mechanic that is an actual buzzword in the ability. Like it shows up as a different color and everything. And they didn't really explain what it does. You would expect that from pretty much every game, even like little roguelikes and stuff like that. Like you could usually hover over that and like see what it does.
This is similar to what I said about Revenant's basic attack when he was coming out, right? That they didn't explain his basic attack in the initial post for what his abilities do, but it's unique and different. You need to explain that that's different to people. That you have to assume everybody knows nothing, right? So you're introducing untargetable. Nobody else has untargetable in their kits. So this is a brand new mechanic to the game. Explain how it functions in your game, even if it's different from other games, especially if it's different from other games. But if it's the same, also still explain it, because you have to assume everybody, this is the baby's first MOBA. What does untargetable mean?
Yeah.
They definitely could have done a better job with that, and hopefully they will in the future, but they won't if nobody ever complains about it. So
but I do.
I'm glad we're complaining about it a bit.
I would love to see a section on their website that goes through every term for these abilities and describes what their effect is.
Even a stun. Let people know what a stun is. Let people know what suppress is. Let people
rooted, stunned, silenced, all the things. Like go through every single effect on an enemy and say what that thing does.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, that closes it out. That's all the questions. That's gonna bring us to the end of the show tonight. Been a pretty long one, been a pretty fun one, but I've enjoyed myself. I don't know about you guys, but let's start closing it out with our final comments. Jedi, where can people find you, and anything you want to say to wrap it up?
Final comments, I guess. I think the biggest thing for me, the key takeaways, like especially coming from a more casual player's standpoint, is like I do think that Predecessor has been doing a good job. You know, each patch has been good. There's nothing egregious each time. Kira has been a blast being added into the game. I do think that she's fun. She's not like dramatic, entrance in. We can go into like, how she's very similar to something else that exists in the universe. But overall, I think she was fun. I enjoyed playing her this week, and I'm excited to see what she does. And then same thing with Overprime. I think Overprime has been the most boring for me to play. Not in isolation, like, a few games here and there, super fun, but it's like over longevity. It's like I can't make it my main game because the macro part of it is just not fun. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what innovations they come up with, because it's not just going to be good enough to be pretty. And it's a very pretty game. It's a very cool looking game, but it doesn't have that meat inside of it. It's just, I don't know. So as far as where you can find me out here on YouTube. I think I'm more active in Discord than I am almost anywhere else right now. But you can still follow me on Twitch if you want to. And you can follow me on Twitter. I do respond to people when they send me messages. I try to be interactive when new stuff gets put out there, and I sometimes post memes, but you'll mostly find me here on FTM.
Jellies?
Yeah, I mean, you can look forward to the monthly recap for Ethereal coming out this week. It is the last week of the month, so that will have some news in it. And
they're pissed right now in chat that nothing about Ethereal.
I said at the beginning that we don't have nothing for Ethereal. I'm sorry.
But you can follow me on Twitch and YouTube, because I will definitively be streaming this week, because Veiled Experts is this week.
Woo!
I am so jazzed for Veiled Experts.
Oh man, streaming probably for that. Yeah,
so excited. So yeah, follow me on Twitch and YouTube, because I'll be streaming there for sure. And yeah, make sure you watch the monthly recap for Ethereal. And that's it for me. What about you, Jamangoose?
Just same thing. I'll be playing Veiled Experts this week. Should be a good time. We have a really good time in that game. Really fun. Come out and watch it. Play it yourself. Hit us up.
Should be super fun. Good time.
But that is going to wrap it up. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Again, sorry I didn't have anything for Ethereal this week. But
why are you sorry?
Yeah, you should be sorry, man.
I am apologizing. All right.
Wow.
I'm apologetic.
Mangoose is the one holding back console news, guys. Everybody knows Mangoose is the reason console hasn't come out for these games yet. All right.
True. Yeah. If Mangoose doesn't know about it, it doesn't exist. It's true.
Yeah. That's also the funny thing. Both JVN and Bloodhunter are in the Patreon for Ethereal and know the news that's coming out. Right. So like these guys are already ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's a good plug. If you want news about Ethereal, join their Patreon. You'll get all the news you want, including early access to all. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. Right on. Yep. For now, this is the For the Minions crew signing off. You guys have a good one.
They should do more certificates, just like inherently as games. They just give those certificates out for good boy.
Be good to each other.
Yeah. Be nice to each other. Earn a certificate.